Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American psychological thriller horror film from 2025, titled Locked. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. In the bustling city of New York, we meet Eddie Barish, a low-life thief trying to get by. He desperately needs $400 to get his broken-down van out of the repair shop so he can start making money to support his daughter, Sarah. Even though he has already paid part of the bill, he begs the shop owner, Carl, to let him take the van, but Carl refuses, insisting he pay the full amount. Eddie notices a wallet belonging to one of the employees and steals the money before walking away. He then tries calling his friends to borrow money, but none of them are willing to help, leaving him frustrated. Eddie's only source of happiness is Sarah, but even she is starting to see through his empty promises. He constantly tells her he'll be there for her, but he never follows through. With no other options, Eddie turns to what he knows best, stealing, to get himself out of this mess. On the street, he looks for an unattended briefcase or an unwatched laptop, and he starts tugging on car door handles, hoping to find one that's unlocked. Eddie spots a luxury Dolus SUV parked in a remote lot, and curious, he checks the door and discovered it's unlocked. He goes inside and starts searching for anything valuable but finds nothing except a pair of sunglasses. Disappointed, he prepares to leave, only to realize the doors are locked. Eddie begins to panic and kicks at the window, but it won't break. Suddenly, a device on the dashboard starts ringing, and unbeknownst to him, someone is watching through hidden cameras inside the car. Eddie frantically searches the vehicle and spots a lug wrench. He grabs it and smashes it against the window, but it doesn't shatter. Desperate, he tries to force open the door panel, but in the struggle, a sharp piece of metal slashes his forearm. With no other options, he hesitates before answering the ringing device, and a man introduces himself as William Larson. When Eddie demands to know what he wants, William calmly informs him that he is now trapped inside the vehicle and explains that the SUV has been modified to function as a prison. However, when Eddie speaks rudely, the car seat suddenly shocks him. William chuckles and explains that Eddie's confinement is the result of his attempt to steal from the vehicle. Frustrated, Eddie pulls out his gun and fires at the window, but the bullet ricochets off the bulletproof glass and hits his leg, leaving him injured. Gritting in pain, he spots a woman walking by and desperately bangs on the window, shouting for help. However, the windows are tinted, she can't see or hear him. Bleeding heavily from his leg, Eddie pleads with William to let him out, but William refuses. Without any option, Eddie tries to call 911, but there's no signal, and weak from blood loss, he eventually loses consciousness. That night, when he wakes up, he realizes that his wounded leg and injured hand have been bandaged. Confused and wary, he also notices that he has no food or water left. The next day, William calls again to mock him, and frustrated, Eddie snaps at him, only for William to shock him again with the car seat, reminding him who's in control. William begins to torture Eddie by drastically lowering the temperature inside the car while playing loud music. The freezing cold and deafening noise drive Eddie to the brink of madness. He begs William to stop, but he refuses, forcing Eddie to endure the suffering until nightfall. When William calls again, the weakened Eddie apologizes, and satisfied, William finally turns off the freezing air. The next day, Eddie makes another attempt to escape, but every effort proves useless, and he eventually gives up. When William calls again, Eddie demands to know what he wants, but William refuses to give him a straight answer, continuing his cruel game. William explains that he designed the SUV as a torture chamber for thieves, and unfortunately for Eddie, he is the first to fall into the trap. Furious, Eddie snaps back, arguing that rich people like William deserve to be robbed because they hoard their wealth and refuse to help the poor. But William simply ends the call without responding. Moments later, the SUV's heat cranks up to unbearable levels, and the deafening music begins to play again. Sweating profusely, Eddie is forced to strip off his shirt, struggling to endure the relentless torment. Suffering from severe dehydration, Eddie considers drinking his own urine but can't bring himself to do it. Watching through the car's hidden cameras, William offers him water, but only if he agrees to follow his rules, which Eddie reluctantly accepts. During their conversation, Eddie spots William standing on top of a nearby building and realizes that his tormentor is close by. William offers Eddie food through the glove compartment, and as Eddie looks through it, he notices a power switch and quickly forms a plan. Waiting for the right moment, he opens the compartment when William isn't paying attention and tries to shut off the switch. However, in his rush, he injures himself. He attempts again, only for William to catch him. As punishment, William shocks him through the car seat once more, and as the days go on, Eddie's condition worsens. Weak from starvation and dehydration, he finally gives in and drinks his own urine, realizing he has no other choice. Eddie's attempt to press the power switch with his foot fails, but he notices another button nearby. He presses it, and suddenly, the car's engine turns on. Wasting no time, Eddie grabs the wheel and tries to drive away, but William takes control, switching the SUV to remote pilot mode. The vehicle begins driving itself through the city, following William's commands. As the car moves through the streets, William tells Eddie about the rising crime in the city and his belief in delivering harsh justice to criminals. He sees himself as an enforcer of justice, willing to take lethal action against those he deems guilty. The car takes Eddie to a dark alley, where he sees two criminals beating up a man. William decides to intervene using the remotely controlled SUV. He drives the vehicle toward the attackers, running over one of them. The other thug tries to escape but is chased to a chain-link gate, where the SUV slams into him. As he struggles to get up, the heavy vehicle moves forward again, crushing his skull and killing him instantly. Eddie becomes furious, despite acknowledging William's point of view about criminals, and starts hurling insults at him. Annoyed, William increases the car's speed, causing Eddie to be thrown against the interior. The SUV takes Eddie to a rooftop and suddenly accelerates toward the edge. Just before it can plunge off, William slams the brakes, making Eddie hit his face and lose consciousness. When Eddie wakes up the next day, he notices that William has driven to Sarah's school and is waiting for her. As Sarah steps out, the SUV follows her as she rides home on her small scooter. Eddie watches helplessly as his daughter is stalked and threatened, and realizing the danger, Sarah panics and tries to escape. In a desperate attempt to stop William, Eddie puts his gun to his temple and pulls the trigger, only to discover that the bullets have already been removed. The car then smashes into Sarah's scooter, but miraculously, she remains unharmed. Having had enough, Eddie begins ripping out the cameras in the car and smashes the dashboard device that William uses to communicate with him. Later, as he scrolls through photos of his daughter on his phone, he records a heartfelt message for her, expressing his love and admitting his past mistakes. The car then drives Eddie to an unknown location, where he finally comes face to face with William, who turns out to be an old man. William hands Eddie a pair of zip ties and orders him to bind his own wrists, but when Eddie refuses, William shocks him through the car seat. After being shocked multiple times, Eddie finally gives in and binds his wrists, and William then enters the car. When Eddie once again demands to know why he is doing this, the old man reveals his tragic past. He was attacked and robbed by ruthless thugs who stole his vehicle and brutally murdered his young daughter. William also confesses that he is dying of cancer, and with little time left, he has chosen to spend his final days as a vigilante, taking justice into his own hands. William then takes Eddie on a dangerous drive out of the city, heading toward a secluded location where he plans to execute him. On the way, Eddie taunts William, hurling insults about his dead daughter and accusing him of being a terrible father. Enraged, William suddenly slams on the brakes, causing Eddie to lurch forward and slam his face against the dashboard. Meanwhile, as the confrontation escalates, Eddie secretly uses his foot to access a hidden panel beneath the glove compartment, and switch off the car's power. This action causes the SUV to lose control and plunge off a cliff. In the wreckage, Eddie regains consciousness and struggles to free himself from his restraints just as William slowly begins to wake. Acting quickly, Eddie breaks free and launches a brutal attack on the older man, leaving him weak and unable to fight back. As flames begin to engulf the vehicle, Eddie spots a hammer inside the bag that William had brought along. He grabs it and desperately smashes the car window. After several strikes, the glass finally shatters, allowing Eddie to crawl out just in time. He stumbles away as the fire rapidly spreads, consuming the SUV and killing William, who remains trapped inside. After the ordeal, Eddie makes his way to the roadside, where a passing driver picks him up and takes him back into town. Once there, he returns to the repair shop, sells his van, and uses the money to buy a bicycle for his daughter, fulfilling his promise to pick her up from school. Covered in injuries and emotionally drained, he reunites with Sarah, embracing her as he vows never to leave her again, and the movie concludes. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Locked from 2025. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.